morning. It's good to see you all, except for you. I'm not even looking at anybody. That popped in my head, and I thought it seemed funny. So, anyway, so the title of this whole series is Under Pressure, and the reason is because that's what James is addressing. Kind of weird we would title something along the lines of the theme. He's talking to people that are going through it. And even as we've addressed already this morning, some of us are going through it right now. And so today and every day that we're talking through James, while he writes very directly and kind of just in your face, doesn't pull punches, his intent, and we'll talk about it briefly, is to encourage. And so my name is Greg Wallace. I'm one of the pastors here on staff. It is an honor to be here, and I look forward every single time. I used to think I got nervous about things, and then I kind of referenced something else and realized I'm like excited. I get like, let's go, let's do this. And so this might sound weird, but I get that way about teaching. So I look into the scripture, and I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever. And I'll go to my wife and tell her something. It's exciting only to me. Just to understand, I'm like, look, it says the here, and it's that. It's so cool. That one, I'm so happy for you, Greg. She doesn't say it that way, but that's in my imagination what it is. You're a good boy, is what I think she's trying to get across. So that done, let's just jump right into the actual passage. We're going to do James chapter 1, verses 12 through 15. He seems like he does a pivot here away from things he'd been talking about, but we're going to get clear on that today. So verse 12 out of the New Living Translation, God blesses those who patiently endure testing and temptation. Great. It's okay to feel it, right? It really is. It's okay to sometimes, at least your initial it not hit the way you think Scripture's intending it, like that's supposed to encourage me. It doesn't. It still hurts, okay? Afterward, they will receive a crown of life that God has promised to those who love him. Thank you. And remember, this is the pivot. Remember, when you're being tempted, do not say, God is tempting me. God is never tempted to do wrong, and he never tempts anyone else. Temptation comes from our own desires, which entice and drag us away. These desires give birth to sinful actions, and when sin is allowed to grow, it gives birth to death. Do you feel encouraged? Good. That's kind of what we're supposed to feel. And the reason is because we all know some level of, let's say on one end of the spectrum is mild discomfort, and on the other is, I don't want to be here anymore as a result. And we've all somewhere multiple times on this spectrum, and so to think that this is encouragement might be a little tough. But let's orient ourselves. I call this prep work in my notes, and it's so far James has been talking about dealing with really hard things. If you remember, he's writing to Jewish Christians who are often dealing with poverty and persecution. And like I've said, James is actually trying to encourage them. Now, what you need to understand is his encouragement is less like maybe a really kind mom whose toddler just fell down and is putting a Band-Aid on their boo-boo. And he's more like the coach grabbing your helmet and screaming in the player's face. Maybe that's a little overboard, but he's very much, maybe he's the time that everyone has had to have this, right? Where you did something and your parents weren't mad, just disappointed. And so you had to sit there and listen to them talk. And all you want to do is get away, but they need to get this out of their system so they don't beat you. So James is encouraging. He's trying to honestly address that things are really hard, but coach the attitude that will get us through. This is not, in my opinion, an ought. What I mean, O-U-G-H-T. English is fun. It's not a you should do this or you sinned. It's not at this stage you should do this or you're a bad person. This is more wisdom ideas where here's how to make this function. Yeah? Here, if you're trying to get through and not quit, here's the way to think about it. And so how he frames it is he frames hardships as opportunities to be faithful. Now, some of our encouragement around in memes and everything is simply that you need to frame this as an opportunity. And I think it falls short. What James is saying, it's an opportunity for faithfulness. Opportunity has a purpose, and it's to be faithful. And the result is you actually are blessed through the faithfulness. James feels this so intently, as we learned last week with Pastor Raphael, is that he appears to think that the people with problems, the poor for him in that, are actually the most blessed. Anyone in here who's struggling, be like, I'm much more blessed than... But this is the degree to which he's seen this. He sees this so intently, again, as last week, he actually thinks that the people who are rich enough to solve their own problems are in the most danger. I would compare this to that athlete who is really, really good and so doesn't work as hard as those who know they need to work. So never reaches their potential, what they could be if they had put in the work. And so James is talking, to be honest, the majority of us here are in the second category. Not just because of our wealth, but because of, well, it is the wealth, the effects of wealth. And if you're like, well, I'm not that rich. TV, cell phone, you got here. We just had a team go to a place that probably saw people who may not have as much as that. And it's not to guilt, it's to orient. It's to get ourselves in the headspace that is able to receive instruction. Yeah? Because if I don't see myself as somebody who needs, Jeff, if somebody offers me an antidote to poison, the first thing I need to know is that I've taken the poison. Otherwise, it's irrelevant. And this is what James is, he's talking to the poor, but we need to hear it. Many of us need to hear it from the other side. That there's some danger involved in comfort. It's a nice goal, but blessings are not the goal. So James feels this so intently that these hardships are opportunities to be faithful, and as a result, it's through that we're blessed. So we're going to look at verse 12. We're going to go 3 sections here. Verse 12 is going to be our first one, and it's going to be a little bit longer because it kind of builds a base for where I think he's going. So James 1, verse 12, God blesses those who patiently endure testing and temptation. After, they will receive the crown of life that God has promised those who love him. If you're into James and you've read him before, you know that there's a word there that shows up in different ways depending on what translation you're looking at. And it either shows up as trials or testing or temptation. And depending on those English words, we can see, oh, this has to do with this other trial and tests and things like that. And maybe, but the reason it's not clear is because it's a general idea. And they're trying to get across what James is trying to get across. And in English, it ends up being a little twisted. It ends up being a little difficult to follow. Even more so that every one of those words is the correct word. It's weird, but that's the way it is. All right? So, this is what as we're trying to get a hold of this, James is talking about all of those. God blesses those who endure testing. Just a very quick note, if you're being tested by God, it in a minute won't be the same thing, because it says God, if we're going to keep the same word, God doesn't test. Well, actually God doesn't tempt, but we'll get there. I'm ahead of myself, sorry, I'm excited. I really like this. But we're looking at testing. Some of us go, well, God's tested me. Can I just encourage you that, or I don't know if this will be encouragement, just a fact, God already knows what you think he's testing you for. Like if he's testing your faith, and I think the way we'd frame it is, well, is the faith there? God knows. There's only one in the equation that doesn't. Me or you. It's a journey of God growing you. All right? So temptations, it fits with the way we think about it. Trials are the same kind of thing as testing, but all these fit within this. We just got to kind of think where he's doing it, because it's one word that applies to a bunch of different things. Maybe you've heard that snow this is way off, but I heard that there's multiple words for snow for certain members of tribes in Alaska. Tell me I'm wrong some other time. But I can imagine that it would be if that's what you experienced, like all the time. There would probably be wet snow and dry snow and fluffy snow, and we have snow. And then we add adjectives to describe it. We've got this word kind of doing a bunch of different work here, okay? So James writes, God blesses those who endure, and the approach is with patient endurance. See, something is hard doesn't remove, when he's talking about this patient endurance, something that's hard doesn't remove your ability to choose how you respond. The title of this message is Elite Endurance, and any runner will tell you that hard is a part of the process. Now, you may look at me and go, you don't know what runners do. You don't know me. I've never enjoyed running, but I used to. I decided my current state is better than the pain of running. But in my past life, in a long time ago, galaxy far, far away, North Carolina, it rained a lot. And we rucked. We would carry heavy weight and go until you couldn't, which never ended. And so I get the concept. I really do. And plus I've lived. I'm 54. I've learned some endurance. I've been in ministry for over 30 years, somewhere around that. And Pastor Jason, we learned some endurance, or we stop. We know what it is. And any runner will tell you that hard is a part of the process. Any doctor who is probably still going to school, if you're in here, because they never stop. The reward for becoming a doctor is that you have to keep studying. Otherwise, you become a bad doctor. Any doctors agree? I don't know if any... I know it's true, so you don't have to agree with me. At least I hope so, or I'm going to bad doctors. And finally, any seasoned Christian, not really finally, but any seasoned Christian will tell you that hard is a part of the process. It doesn't mean that we seek it out unless you do. Pastor Raphael's training to run a marathon. Ow. The whole thing hurts. There's never a point. There's only one point, and it's at the end of whatever you've been training for. And then they're so broken at that point that they go, let's do it again. This stuff changes who we are, and we become the thing that we're training for, and this is what James is trying to get us to do. Like a good coach, parent, or pastor, James wants his readers to embrace trials with the perspective that these challenges are opportunities for growth in faith. The challenges to your faith and not giving up or in solidify the faith. So endurance is actually also the path to the blessings of God. Fundamentally, if we are faithful, we are blessed. James calls it a crown of life. And we were talking on Thursday, and Pastor Raphael pointed out that this is a military wreath, like you're a general, and you come back after having won a great victory, and upon your head they would put this wreath, and it's the crown. This one won. This is what winners get. Sorry, puberty. So I'm told also, because I haven't done this, that runners often get medals when they finish a race. Yeah? Yep, great. To be completely honest, that's not worth it. Because if you want to run a marathon, you have to change your whole life. You got to plan, which is, I think, maybe the hardest part, at least for someone like me. You have to change how you eat, because you have to plan what you eat. You have to exercise, which means you have to plan what you're going to exercise. You have to buy things, which sounds like fun, but they're just things to cause pain or to help you find pain, which you also have to plan. So you got to budget this thing in. And I got to tell you, to me, a little piece of metal tied up with a piece of ribbon isn't worth it. But talk to somebody who's completed a marathon and ask if they've kept that medal or thrown it away. The raw value of the thing absolutely isn't worth it. But it's not why they're doing it. They're doing it because they're crazy. I ruined your that's right. It's not why they're doing it. You talk to them and they haven't thrown it away. The process that they went through actually gave the medal value. Yeah? It's one you only get if you patiently endure. And not just the race, but all the hard stuff that prepped you for the race. Also talking to Pastor Raphael, because again, but this fits, is that what he found at the end of I think it was the half marathon. What he found at the end is after doing this race alone and getting the medal and possibly even having the thought, there were in that spot other race completers, finishers. And what he found in that moment was camaraderie. Camaraderie with other people who had been through the same thing. All at different levels. Maybe some just blew through it with no problem. Others struggled. Maybe others walked a little bit. All different paths to how they did it, but on the same race. A path meaning all different manners in which they executed it. But camaraderie based on what they had all experienced similarly. So what if, as James is telling us, within this hardship, within these challenges, and that somehow, you get a little crown. What if the only way we can understand the value of that blessing is to buy into the trial? There's wisdom in that, guys. There's wisdom when you tell someone, look, I know this is hard, about whatever it is. I got the chance the other day at my dentist, just encourage a young lady who was trying to figure out what her next step educationally was. And she just wasn't sure if she could do it. And sometimes you can tell just by talking to somebody that they're all there. They're sharp, right? But sometimes life experiences lead us to think that we're not something, when in fact you could be. And to having gone through, I'm able to just say, look, I'm not just saying this to blandly or pointlessly encourage you, but you can do what you decide to do, what you choose. Verse 13. I think God is guiding us and not just tempting us. And so verse 13, and remember when you're being tempted, do not say God is tempting me. Because God is never tempted to do wrong, and he never tempts anyone else. So we just had all this stuff that I'm telling you about, this encouragement, and I think it's hitting. And now James jumps us to, and God never tempts you. This is a switch, guys. This doesn't, the way it reads in English, it feels like these don't connect. So why is he suddenly writing about temptation? This stuff, and a quick understanding about when we're reading the Bible, and it feels like, especially in the letters of Paul and James and some of these, it can get a little difficult to follow their line. But I want to encourage us to know that if something is in a passage and there hasn't been some transition words or something that says, all right, I'm done with that, I'm going to talk about this now. If there's nothing indicating that, then what is written connects with everything that has been written before and connects with the stuff that's coming after. They're not spaghetti thoughts that he's just popping up. In some commentaries, they think James is like Proverbs, which is this way. Proverbs is, here's a little chunk, do good, don't do bad. Next one, kids are great, you should have them. I don't know if the author had kids at that point, and that is definitely my version of like arrows in a quiver or something like that. Proverbs is like that, but James I don't think is. Some commentaries think he is, but I really, really don't. I think he's not doing a spaghetti thought. And by that, one of my sons, my youngest son, we're driving one day. It's just us three, my wife, and he's in the back, and he's like 3 or something like that. And out of nowhere, he just starts roaring in laughter. Like your kid went crazy laughing. Like, what's wrong? Do we need to go to the hospital? He's laughing hysterically. And we finally get him, after like a minute, to kind of calm down. And, Ryan, what's so funny? And he's like, Patrick. And it took us another good 1 to 2 minutes to realize he was living a SpongeBob episode in his head. And so there was no connect to anything that had happened before that point. All right? James is not even close to this, okay? He's certainly not remembering SpongeBob, but he's also not just popping this thing out of nowhere. For him, it makes sense. So in context of what James has written so far, trials are formative, intended to refine faith. And within this, there is a core temptation. This is the temptation to make the hardship stop or be easier. Yeah? He jumps to temptation because he's recognizing in the hardship, we want the hardship to stop. That is common sense. If not stop, can we make it easier? So maybe the temptation is not to be unfaithful, but listen, maybe less faithful. Maybe not quit, but just not try as hard. Maybe hedge some so that the intensity of the challenge lightens. For James, he's writing to people who are being persecuted, who it wasn't even good to be Jewish, but now you've added Jesus into your Jewishness. So now you've been rejected, you're not accepted within Roman culture, and you've been rejected by your own people. And you're not month to month poor, you're not week to week poor, you're day to day poor. And these are the people he's trying to encourage. And the lesson can ring true for us too, as long as we remember that every challenge doesn't mean that it's not God, it's not necessarily evil. I'm not saying we have to think through it. We have to bring reason into this, but James is challenging us. The temptation in a marathon is to make the pain stop. Am I right? I'm not saying what it hits up against is your goal, right? My understanding is I've done a few much shorter races, but in the first few steps, you're like, yeah, okay, I can do this. Now, if I were running right now, that would be it. A few steps, I can do this. And then I'd be like, what in the world did I agree to this? This is terrible. And my self-talk will actually keep me from accomplishing something, but we'll get there. So the temptation, even in training for a marathon, is the same. And temptation, even as we're living out our Christian life, is the same. The temptation as followers of Jesus, especially when things are hard, is to make things easier. There are things that happen that make it hard to believe, guys, that God is even on your side. Because there are things that people do that don't deserve forgiveness. And there are within each of us biological urges that have us, that are so persistent that it would be easier to give in. And in the face of these challenges and so many more, the crown, how could it be worth it? But listen, seriously, listen to this. The call in our lives to follow Jesus isn't to get the blessing. The blessing's the effect. The blessing's the consequence. Our call is to God. Our call is faithfulness to Jesus. This is the message of James, and one of the reasons he's difficult to understand is because his first and primary loyalty is to God. James is likely the brother of Jesus. If you have brothers or sisters and they came to you and started preaching around town that they are the Messiah, would that be weird? I don't know. Would you get your family together and go and try and get him or her and pull them back? This is what the family did. They tried and they said, there's a little story where it says, hey, Jesus, your family's outside. The reason they're there is to come get him because he's nuts. The exact way you and I would feel. And we've got James, who's likely the brother of Jesus, completely bought in. Something has transformed him. And that's his primary thing. And this is why he's so intent and so direct. But then you have this pastoral side where he's genuinely caring. He may not have the, you're so good, and let me cuddle up to you and help you through this, but he's got the, this is the word, so we have to do this. Do it. So this is why James writes about God not tempting anyone also. Is because God is fundamentally faithful. There's literally no unfaithfulness in him. So how or why would he give that option to you and I? Finally, James 14-15, don't drift to death. Temptation comes from our own desires, which entice us and drag us away. These desires give birth to sinful actions, and when sin is allowed to grow, it gives birth to death. So God doesn't tempt us, rather our own desires lead us astray. Temptations then to not endure might look like this: quitting because this is too hard. How about comparison? These are basically ways to get out of the pressure, and if that's what they're doing, why should I even try? They went to East Africa. I guess they're the real Christians. They are, but so are you. They just went to East Africa. They decided to go be uncomfortable for like a week and a half or something like that. And that's just in the airports. It's a comparison. How about cheating? Trying to find shortcuts. But the effect of a cheat is you're not prepped. These guys who are training for running, they could tell everybody, oh yeah, I ran 10 miles yesterday, when they actually slept. But the effect is they wouldn't be prepped for the race. And how about lying, where we change our report to make it look like we endured? What should be some of that? So James explains this process that our desires, this isn't the devil made you do it. You did it. Amen. I did it. If I'm tempted, it's my desire. If you want the devil to have at least done something, because you need that, then he's presenting it to you. It's out there. But I want it. What do I do with that is still up to me. Our desires then can drag us away. And desire gives birth to actions. And when those actions are unchecked, they kill. And what does it mean by death? It means separated from God. So what happens? You and I have the potential to separate ourselves from God, who has never separated himself from you and I. A forever faithful God. We can choose to leave. And the danger is there, and it's scary. Stated another way, the temptation to not endure happens when we want something else so much that we are pulled away. The result is we choose things that are sinful. Sin that becomes planted in our lives, takes roots, and is allowed to flourish. That's the correct word. It's allowed to flourish. And separation from God is the inevitable result. Final thought on this is giving in solves short-term problems, guys. But it creates a greater issue of where will I turn to for hope if this next thing I'm leaving God for doesn't work out. Now what? Fundamentally, I said this is about elite endurance. Fundamentally, the elite endure because they think different, they speak different, and they act different. They are clear on the goal, faithfulness, not blessing. They know that choices are theirs and they take responsibility. It's not looking to blame someone else, but what is my role and how do I work on this? They admit the challenges, but also vocalize their will to keep going. And they let the goal change how they act and live. Let me give you another version of this entire passage out of the Message. It just helps us. See, we've just done some good reading. We've done some good Bible. And now we're going to use what is essentially commentary of the Bible to help instruct us and give us more clarity. So he writes in this translation, anyone who meets a testing challenge head on and manages to stick it out is mighty fortunate. For such persons loyally in love with God, the reward is life and more life. Don't let anyone under pressure to give in to evil say, God is trying to trip me up. God is impervious to evil and puts evil in no one's way. The temptation to give in to evil comes from us and only us. We have no one to blame but the leering, seducing flare-up of our own lust. It just makes you feel good, yeah? Lust gets pregnant and has a baby. Sin. And sin grows up to adulthood and becomes a real killer. Aaron, if you'd come up. So in this series, we're habit stacking, and we're talking about what will he intentionally think, what will he intentionally say, and what will we intentionally do. And what I want to help and what I want to encourage for this week are these intentional thoughts. It's going to start really, really basic and maybe even just stay there. But I think the first one that you need to remember is think this: I am a follower of Jesus. The recognition within the temptation to notice it and go and respond. In your mind, I'm a follower of Jesus. It is a reorientation. When something starts to drag me this way, I can go, I'm a follower of Jesus. Yeah? The second thing I want us to intentionally think is I am in charge of my thoughts and actions. We can get within something and do it so repetitively that we become much less aware of our choices. Your drive home is probably almost automatic because you've repeated it over and over again. And there are things in our lives that can become repetitive. And this is what James is talking about. If there's sin issues, if there are things that draw you and I away from faithfulness, this is how I'll define sin. Anything, even if it's just to you, that draws you away from faithfulness to Jesus is sin to you. It may be sin to everyone, but you're not in charge of everyone. So I am in charge of my thoughts and actions. See, this following Jesus is hard, so I want to choose that that's what I'm going to do. Also intentionally think, this is worth it. And you may need to add on because Jesus said so. I can motivate myself and think this is worth it, this is worth it. But sometimes my self-talk is a little too mean. Just being real honest and open. And sometimes even within that positive talk, I need to reorient that, micro reorientations of, it's because Jesus said. Here's where the value comes. Here's where the worth comes. And maybe just ask a question, am I equipping myself to endure? I know this is a lot. Next, what will I intentionally say? These are responses to the thoughts that are going on, guys. How about God in prayer? God, Father, I may not understand. I don't understand. But I believe you. How about this? I can do this. Some of you in your life have either adopted or been trained to say to yourself, I can't. This is actually bleeding over into your relationships too, and always has, because you don't believe other people can do things either. And at another level, you may think that they're being uppity if they try. This isn't healthy. It's internally toxic. You can. We can do what we truly decide. These choices have a price, but you can do it. And then what will I intentionally say? How about, hey, can we hang out? This is an issue of support system. To faithfully endure, we just can't do it alone. It's not just shouldn't. It's that health involves a healthy community. And runners know other runners. I can tell soccer players by the way, if I see someone kick anything, I go, oh, you played. Or you didn't. So I like making fun of football players because they think they can, kicking's easy. And then they look like absolute morons. That may have to do with I've always been a small person and football players are big, so I'm mean about it. But so can we do this? Can we hang out? Making sure it's healthy, making sure it's walking you through. Making sure that in addition to your things, you're looking for other people's things, yeah? This is what will make it healthy. And finally, what will I intentionally do? Pretty simple. Get up in the morning. Church, some things are just so hard. Different stages that you're in. How do you even express that to someone else? When the only thing you have is, I know Jesus. I don't know anything about what I'm in right now. I don't know why. I don't know anything, but I know him. So what can you do? You can get up in the morning. Honestly, sincerely, good job. What can you do? You can choose your mindset. It will become habit, but it starts with daily effort. And I'm on this running kind of metaphor. What can you intentionally do? Put your shoes on. Because you need to go do something. You need to go do what you're here for and get it done. So the last one is run. Let's do this. Let's do this. God didn't call you because you can't. He called you because you can through Him. Yeah? You know why He called Israel? You know why He picked Israel? The Bible actually says it. God says it to the people of Israel. I didn't pick you because you were big and strong and could do things. I picked you because you can't. I picked you because through you, everyone will know that God is truly God. Because if you can get Greg and transform him to the point that 40-some years later, he's standing up preaching about how hardships grow us. Because he can't do anything. He's an angry little kid who's lonely and lost. And so God says, I'll choose him. And I bet you each have a story too. And God chose you. So let's do this. If you come forward, prayer team. See, we don't just want you to win 30 seconds from now. We want you to win 30, 40, 50 years from now. We want to encourage you by coaching you. If your goal is a full marathon, then you aren't impressed when you pass mile 13. Your goal is different. And our goal here, guys, is not just to make it to the current challenge. It's to finish the race. But not just finish it. Finish it well. Let's stand, church, as we pray. The team here is ready to be, if there's something you want to talk about, you want prayer for, don't hesitate. Come and ask for prayer. It's, hey, can you hang out? Can we talk? Can you pray for me? This is some of the steps. So let's pray. Father, I love you. I thank you for your word, your challenge, your encouragement through that challenge. You make us real, God. And while we see ugly and pointless and useless and no purpose, God, you see purpose. You see purpose in individuals, but you see purpose in a community coming together, doing your will. Teach us how to be faithful. Teach us how to stay faithful. Teach us how to follow through on that faithfulness. Holy God, make us like you. In Jesus' name, church, say amen. God bless you today. Have a great week. We'll see you Wednesday. And please come forward.